Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon, plus the join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion right here, right now, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Quantum Eraser, Paul Hall, Flatzoid and 10th Man, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Has anybody bothered to hustle the people off mute in Discord? Oh yeah, somebody's already done it. Excellent. Just not very enthusiastic from the Discord server. Any signs of a physical geometric Earth curve edge?
No, we're still waiting.
Any signs at all of any Earth curvature?
Not from national parks.
Any evidence of axial rotation?
Well, we would feel it if there was.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No.
What is the sun?
Good question.
No distance measurement to it, for sure.
Any scientific evidence of gravity? Anybody at all?
First has to be science.
They often assert it as being scientifically valid. So yes, given that they assert it as science, I would like scientific evidence of whatever gravity may be. Anybody? Jimbo says, scientific evidence of what? Precisely, Jimbo. Thank you very much for the super chat. Whatever they want it to be, you can think of it as a roast chicken if you so desire. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Nope.
Hey, Arwin. Didn't see you there.
Hello.
Have you?
Good afternoon.
Nothing from Becky?
No.
You're going to ask about Becky Daly, are we?
Are you gonna ask her every day like a troll?
Nope.
What science did you do today, Becky?
Dr. Becky, I'll have you. Yeah. She's earned that doctor.
But no, they think they are leaving the science to the people doing the programming of the computers that tell them what to do. So they trust that their higher ups know what they're doing and have given them a proper program in order to basically assist in the field work as they see to the scientific process that they don't fully understand. This is probably what they really think.
Almost as good as independent variables, dependent variables, controls. Almost. Go on, whoever it was in Discord.
Yeah. Have you all ever looked more closely at the Mars, so-called Mars landscape, where they've literally mapped out the whole thing? And I definitely can see some aspects of the computer game thing of how they've literally CGI'd it, but it's really interesting. They've generated so much data, and like Arwin is saying, so there's so much data out there that all this scientists, quote unquote, believe is just phenomenal. once you look at the detail of all the data they've fabricated.
It reminds me of
Like a giant painting of data.
Well, talking of paintings, that reminds me of, I can't remember the name of the guy, but there's somebody who painted, I'm pretty sure it was Mars, through a telescope and drew all these rivers on it and all this shit. It turned out to be him seeing his own cataracts. He just drawn it on the light. Yeah, quite amusing. I'll have to look up who that guy was. Anyway, sorry, just a mildly amusing anecdote regarding painting what Mars is.
Yeah, that would be pretty funny. Oh, was pretty funny, yeah. But I just wonder, like, they've got this whole pipeline somewhere of people fabricating this data, and I don't know. I mean, it is something intriguing. I know it's irrelevant to the argument, but still.
Still fascinating, though. As you say, the problem with anything that's come from that particular research institute is I don't believe a word they say anymore. Once you've found out that they're lying to you in one regard, I don't gather any information from them to assess anymore. So it might be the case that all of this imagery is, perfectly legit, and you could go and replicate it if you had enough money to do so and enough decent optical equipment to gather the data. But I don't really want to spend my time assessing whether or not something that from that place is lies or not first. Do you know what I mean? So it could be all real.
It becomes a big waste of time.
Say again, sorry.
Yeah, it does become a big waste of time, because the last I really looked was some sort of like I was trying to compare the go fast footage with the NASA quote unquote sounding rocket footage, and so it sort of seemed, it's a kind of rocket that goes up really fast and goes high really fast. It's really small. The go fast rocket being the famous one, but once I saw, with the NASA one, they have the sounding rocket go up, then they basically sort of like freeze the frame, because you notice there's no more video artifacts for a certain period, and they claim that it's going from like 100 miles to 300 miles or something. Then once it drops again, then sort of like the artifacts start coming again. So it's like, at that point I was just, why bother looking at any more NASA stuff, right? And then looking at, let's say, supposedly the 4K footage or the GoPro footage of astronauts in space on the space station, it's it just becomes tiring, because you spend too much mental energy thinking about how they're faking it. So yeah, it gets a bit tiring and boring at that point.
Well, at that specific point, it leads me on to the next housekeeping question nicely. So you said on the ISS, so any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container? And then I'll move on with my point about the ISS and the images. Anybody at all? So given that they claim that these images are coming from a sky vacuum, they're immediately bunk. Now, let's say for the sake of argument they weren't proven liars, and they said it's come from high altitude planes. I'd be all over it. I'd be looking at it all day. My journey into this, one of the things that flashed through my mind, one of those things that I did but didn't come to the subject, was I got maybe 2 or 3 computers ago. What I wanted was real-time footage of weather on like a desktop screensaver. That was my ambition. I'm like, one of the first things I'll do. And I discussed this with Mark Sargent because it's one of the things he talked about, because he was building a server and he wanted to put, he said it was when the Apple phone came out. It was probably about the same sort of time for me. And you've got this picture of the blue marble on the first phone, the Apple iPhone. And you're like, well, I want real-time weather footage. Why wouldn't we? We've got plenty of stuff out in space. Surely one of them would be able to give the real-time data. And I couldn't find it. All I found was endless duplicates of the same composite blue marble. And at the time, it didn't ring alarm bells, but it's certainly one of the things that flashed through my mind when I heard Matt Powerland say the words flat earth without ridicule attached. So it's one of those that you go, there isn't this footage available. But if they were punting it as what it potentially is, potentially because they're claiming it's taken from a sky vacuum, definitely not real, violates the second law of thermodynamics, so I disregard the pictures, but they might be really useful. It might be that if they weren't lying about where they came from and they said they were high altitude footage, like I say, I'd be studying them to the nth degree. But I just don't feel it's worthy of my time to first dilute out the fact that if I ever presented them, I've got to say, bearing in mind these have come from a fake place they're claiming, why would I want to give that disclaimer with anything I produce after studying it? I just wouldn't. So, there we go. Any
Yeah,
evidence?
they need to push the ISS and astronauts and all that. So that's why they have to say everything's from the ISS. They're not going to sort of dilute the message. Because these are all marketing, branding tactics. They could easily say XYZ from this and that, but they'll leave that to the page 2 to page 5 of those space magazines or space websites. But they need up front and center is ISS.
Right, they've got to account for that light in the sky. What becomes a very real problem if it's unaccounted for becomes a strength in their argument. Of course, space is real. Look, you can actually see something in space. There's the light in the sky going past. So it's their strongest argument to have this false narrative attached to that light in the form of the ISS. Now, obviously, the people on our side that do this, I'm not pouring scorn on anybody who does this. Fine, good for you. But endlessly analysing the green screening, the harnesses, all the stuff that's clearly done on camera on a set, all of that stuff gets pulled apart, but it doesn't address the actual link between somebody who's Joe Normal looking up at the sky and going, well, I can see that the ISS is real. Because their association is that light in the sky is the set production that they present you on TV. So the only way to undo that is say, where is the light claimed to be? Comes back to the same point about me invalidating their photos claimed to be taken from a sky vacuum. They say that the set production that you see on TV is taking place in a sky vacuum. The light in the sky is still the light in the sky. But the sky vacuum that the stage production's taking, that's definitely bullshit. So what you're left with is still a light in the sky that goes past. That's now unaccounted for, because their account of it is debunked on account of the fact that the medium they claim to be in when they're travelling in that light, called the ISS, when you point at the sky, isn't a narrative that can possibly exist in reality because it violates natural law. So their account for the ISS with their stage production is immediately void. Well, what's the light in the sky? Good question. Why is the sky blue? Good question. What's the sun? Good question. Well, they're the sources for all your information in regards to those exact things. How it's all set up with a distant sun and an atmosphere and the light dispersing through it gives you your blue sky. Well, once you take away a distant sky outside of our atmosphere at these astronomical distances based on presuppositions of R values, that's a good segue. Any evidence of the R value?
I wanted to talk about Mr. Blue Sky.
Who's Mr. Blue Sky?
You don't know?
No?
When?
It's old school, man. ELO.
Electric Light Orchestra.
Electric Light Orchestra, baby. Get some.
Yeah, I thought
Way
it
ahead of
rang
their
a vague
time.
bell.
What?
Say again?
What does this have
When you
to
said
do with
Mr. Blue
R?
Sky, I said who's Mr. Blue Sky, but in the back of my mind, when I was selling hi-fi, there would have been a customer that would have come in with ELO records and played them to me. So I have vaguely heard of Mr. Blue Sky.
Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why. Please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. So long. Come on, man.
What I need is one of those cards, like on a button on my little box, that cuts all audio, puts we are experiencing technical difficulties, so that can never ever happen again.
And by the way, Robin Trower wasn't a girl, for goodness sakes. You guys got to get your fucking music acumen up to a certain standard.
Right.
Right?
And just as
Your
we're on,
standard?
I'll get you there.
look, man, as we're on up-to-date current events and pop trivia, the chick in the crying game's also a man.
Sounds like a boomer wants us back on his musical train.
Hey, you didn't.
Oh.
Are we all up to date now with the 1980s music and video?
I think everyone will
1980s,
get there
man.
by September.
ELO 70s.
Is it 70s?
That's
ELO?
all right. ELO 70s, man.
Really?
80s,
I'm sure they
possibly
spanned into the 80s, surely.
You missed it.
Oh, we missed a
We
pun.
can move on.
We were trying to
I
figure out
said-
timings for
I
pop
said-
trivia. Sorry,
I
10th
said
man.
you'll all get there by September.
Ah, boom, boom. Let's all reminisce a bit more about ELO. No, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No, but Sweet Talking Woman was, I'll tell you what, that song, it's one of the greatest songs ever right there, man.
Marshmallows
Go on,
over
sir.
fire.
Does it have an proof for the molten iron core in it?
John must have had an early breakfast today.
You can think of it as hell.
I had early coffee, man. I'm smoking.
That'll do it. What's up, guys?
Hey, 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 hey. So JLB was giving hints of changing his philosophy to flat earther. Did anybody else
Huh?
pick up on that?
What? Really?
Well, asking us if I was to argue this as a flat earther. I'm paraphrasing, of course. JLB's never taken the position of what was your archetypical flat earther guy touting azimuthal equidistant projection, domes, ice walls. You know, that's his caricature of a flat earther,
This
which he didn't want to be, and still doesn't, and I don't either. Despite the fact the Earth being obviously and observably flat. Now he's obviously now been told in no uncertain terms about the untenable geometric values that the Earth, spherical Earth, requires. Hopefully he'll run with it. He was keen to hear it as a globe Earth skeptic, which he's always been. I don't know, a lot of people don't know who JLB is. There was a lot of people in the comments and in the chat that were like, who is this guy? JLB's been around talking about this subject longer than I have. So when I was first...
You wouldn't know that.
You wouldn't, yeah, well, maybe not, but nevertheless, he was interviewing Eric DeBay, Jaronism, Dave Murphy, a whole bunch of people, long before anybody who are currently listening and watching this show were even here. He was interviewing them, and as a very much a ball earth skeptic, as he phrases it. I'll give you an example of something that he did. He was he was the first person to expose Cavendish as complete horseshit. And he made a video using that guy, that Spanish guy with the messed up teeth, laughing his head off. And he took that and put subtitles underneath about how Cavendish balls in a shed give you all the values of the weights of the lights in the sky, and he's laughing his head off. Well, Tiger Dan, the guy he mentioned when he was on yesterday, took that, mirrored it, and it lent quite a lot of weight to JLB's channel. But then he got tarred with this idea of flat earther. And Tiger Dan, the guy who mirrored it, specifically was, using or creating his own azimuthal equidistant projection based on flights. So JLB wanted none of that. Didn't want to be associated with the ideas of flat earthism when there was clear issues with the flights at the time, back in 2015, 16, I forget, there or thereabouts. But yeah, he's had the Ball Earth Skeptic Roundtable, all of which are available on his website, where he's discussed this subject in great depth and detail with people like Jaron, like Eric, loads of them. The list goes on and on and on. So while people were sort of I'm not expecting anybody to kowtow out to JLB, but by the same token, there is a certain amount of respect I will give him, given the amount of people he's exposed to the subject and the nonsense of flat Earth. I've sided with him, albeit not vocally in massive way, but on a lot of the things that he's challenged flat Earthers on and their nonsense that they assert, I've actually sided with him. Now, he may not know that, but when he was like, "Oh, you actually have very similar opinions," well, yeah, we do. That's why I promote him and say, check him out, because there are a lot of things on our own side. I'm sure Quantum Eraser will agree with me that we punt that's crap. And when I say we, I mean flat earthers. If we're all going to be bundled in the same bag, unfortunately, we've got to start poking the people that are tarred with the same brush we are and saying, "No, stop punting this nonsense." And he was one of them, JLB that is. He just didn't want to attribute the term flat earther, even though, as far as I am concerned, the Earth is obviously and observably flat.
Can I be bad cop?
Whiskers, eh?
You can, but Arwin's
Can I
been
be
itching to
bad
get a few
cop?
words in. You go ahead, Arwin, and then afterwards, if you would. Cue in.
All I wanted to say is just Whiskers, eh? Yeah, I've been trying to poke around with that, but yeah, when you call a disker, they don't really like it. Apparently, they consider that to be a swear word, bannable offense.
Oh, when you call a flat earther who has a projection of a model that's come from a sphere Earth to begin with, you call them a disker. They don't like that.
But because of the specific orientation, the map-based literalism and the disk, usually sun and moon literal positionists as well, with domes. Yeah, pretty much the real baseline visuals that are being handed out by a lot of activists. But yeah, I call them diskers
I
because
see.
it's very specific, the model.
Politically, it's a hard one for me because obviously you've got people like Mark Sargent that I've discussed this with, and he has a reasonable justification for his entry-level exposure to the subject with a model that allows somebody who's a beginner to conceptualize something different. Now, I know from experience that when people come to the subject, they want you to give them answers where there may not be any. Now, Mark's prepared to do that for the sake of reprogramming people cognitively. It's not necessarily to say that he would put his stamp of approval on that map, but he does use it as a tool, and that's how he justifies it. Now, I am prepared to agree to disagree with Mark and not start some war over it, despite the fact that I absolutely poo-poo the idea and notion of models, which is what that is. A globe-based model that projects out from the centre as a projection known as azimuthal equidistant projection. So that model isn't my model, and I don't put my stamp on it at all. Doesn't mean to say it's not a useful tool. I can understand the arguments for it. But there are a lot of people who will take that, this is the downside to Mark doing that, and suddenly think that is the world we live in, and they reify it and hold it close to their heart. And then it gets burnt as a straw man by the opposition. And why wouldn't they? In my view, that's its purpose. That's why we've got it. That's why it's on the maps, or on the flags, the UN flag, and that's why it's slipped into movies. That's my opinion. That's just speculation. But they hand you this model so they can burn it.
Hey Nathan, can I make
Mark
a very silly analogy?
You can,
It's
but
basically like
QE's waiting to
they're
make a point,
forcing-
Arwin. You can, but QE's waiting to make a point also. Can you wait till after?
Aw.
If it's quick, go on, Arwin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very quick. Yeah, so it's like if you leave your wife for a newer girl, there's a great likelihood your old wife is going to be complaining and whining to your head about the new girl. So you just have to make a clean break and let the old relation just go away. And don't start dipping into new models right away.
With models. Okay, you got there in the end. Perfect. Yes, I understand the analogy. Okay, QE, go ahead. Sorry.
Number 1, Mark's ace. No problem. Back to JLB. Listen, I was peeling apart that Cavendish nonsense before JLB got out of high school. Number 2, I ran into JLB when I first got out here and challenged that knucklehead immediately. He was spewing nonsense. And if anyone, you know what kind of nonsense he's going for from yesterday's performance and his 2014 arguments. The guy's a clown. That's all he is. Come back on here and I'll prove it some more.
He's not a clown.
Thanks.
I don't agree. I just think he's detached himself from the subject while we've progressed in the subject. So he's picking it back up where he's left off from it. And the arguments have moved on. Well, that will be to his detriment. And if he might just continue to ignore it. That's how a lot of people are. In which case he'll remain ignorant in this subject. But I don't think that's the case, given that he does periodically join and challenge us based on his understanding. I can't really ask any more than that.
It's ambiguous nonsense.
I didn't say he was right.
I mean, yeah, but come on. If you don't understand, these are simple subjects. I'm not even talking about flat Earth versus globe Earth. I'm just talking about second grade coherency. He didn't understand what we were talking about yesterday. It's preposterous. I'm sorry.
What specifically? With the star rotation? You only mentioned it briefly.
No, not the star rotation with the flights. He couldn't understand the concept of level flight and the ground falling away from you.
No, I don't disagree. I described to him and he conceptualized the buildings falling away as you look at them from the runway, and then obviously that's going to apply to the planes, but he justified it by saying, well, you're talking in contradictions because it would have to maintain it. In other words, he begs the question and forces it upon us, which is just that's the kind of mentality that we deal with, is it not, when people are programmed in a certain way? He's just done it with a slightly more subtle projection onto us about how we were begging the question of a sphere and what it would need to do, while he justifies the fact that they are actually flying level. So he's simultaneously giving a concession whilst accusing us of having a contradiction in our explanation for how it would fall away. So, double speaking is perhaps something to justify his own apprehensions, because I still think he's on the ball.
Yeah, and then he is, and then when his nonsense gets challenged, he pulls out the snowflake victim card. Well, you're so angry. Second grade playground nonsense. Grow the hell up. My work. Come back in here.
I liked Timmy Clown.
We'll go over 1 + 1 = 2 for you for 30 minutes, okay?
Timmy Clown was brilliant. I could have kissed him. He was ace. So he comes in, does the usual, your argument's stupid. Right, what's their argument? Doesn't understand it, can't repeat it. Gets it half repeated by Spurs of all people. Interrupts it and then protests that he knew it already when he's interrupted it, and then can't repeat it a second time. And then launches into the argument. You're like, this is great. This is like the textbook. This is like that little clip that you want to trim out and go, this is how they behave. Poo-poo the argument, say it's stupid. Get demonstrated to not understand the argument. Have the argument and explain to them in a vague way that they interrupt. Get into actually arguing about the argument. And then, because they don't understand it, get to a point where they have to relinquish their own religion. I think the point for him was to say, your assertion of Earth geometry is a straw man. We don't assert Earth geometry. When have we ever asserted Earth geometry? In other words, they are literally hanging themselves.
Yep. You go in for the kill quick. I just want to let everyone know. See, I like to expose them for not knowing what atmospheric refraction is, because I've heard refraction for years. Refraction, right? I like to really rub their noses in it, right? Take a little longer, prolonged approach to it. But you go right for the kill shot quick, because as soon as they say that horizon's refracted, it's over.
So did Spurs.
Kudos.
So did Spurs. There was like a bit of discourse between you and Timmy, I think. And Spurs interrupts and like, is the horizon physical or non-physical? I'm like, boom! Well done.
Spurs cut me off with that because I was coming in with that. Like I was getting tired of this crap, and then like a minute before I was gonna do it, Spurs came in. I was like, oh shit, look at Spurs! Awesome.
Spurs is all over this, man. I hand out, kudos to you, Spurs. Don't let them divert. Hammer on them. Wear a sharp suit and ace them. Thanks.
Did we only cover that in the pre-show? The chaff?
We could cover it again if you want.
I think it's worth covering again. I'll give it a mild introduction, then you can say. So I'm going to put a picture up on screen. So what this represents is how the argument is currently being fought on their side. So this is a obviously visual representation of the main target being the globe and lots of countermeasures being launched. Go ahead, QE, if you want to carry on.
Yeah, I had this concept about a month and a half ago. It was before the Black Swan argument, because the ballers, they have no recourse but to divert. We've known this for years, but it's becoming more pronounced over the past couple weeks, and specifically to the Black Swan. So I've been telling everybody, especially in Discord, the flat earthers, just to be aware. Right? Because they have no argument. The sacrificial lambs that they do send in, right? Once they get compromised, which is relatively quickly, within 30 seconds, if the flat earthers are sharp, they'll start to divert, right? And bring out nonsensical buffoonery, the flimsy arguments they have, counterclockwise, clockwise nonsense, more of the same of that. But what happens is, flat earthers lose their focus and start focusing on their countermeasures. So Betty helped me make up this concept and put it in a slide form that, see, the flat earth missiles are on the left-hand side. The focus of your attention should be on the primary target, which is the globe earth. But what most flat earthers fall into is they target all the countermeasures. Don't do that. Let them go off on their own little tangent and focus right on the prize. Hope everyone gets it. Thanks.
300 people watching live. Check it out, my second channel, Nathan Oakley, which you probably heard mention me saying this was discussed in the pre-show. So typically the home of the pre-show and after-show is actually my second channel, and it's probably about 80 subscribers short of 5,000 subscribers, which, considering it's an ancillary channel, is pretty amazing. I haven't really kept up to the subscribers on that channel. It's just grown massively. Wonderful. But yeah, the people who typically watch it are more focused because they watch for a lot longer on that channel, which is great. The stats are fantastic in terms of the amount of time people actually spend watching it. But often, like the conversation with JLB yesterday, he joined for the last 2 or 3 minutes of the live show, and then there was another hour, maybe even more afterwards, in the after show, and that goes out on my second channel. So there is a link below. Check it out. Hopefully I can get it to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the day. If there's 80 people in the live stream that aren't actually subscribed to Nathan Oakley channel, check it out. Go and subscribe. Enjoy the uncut and after show, which comes out a few hours after the live show's finished. But yeah, just to bring this back on track. So exactly, if you take Tim as an example yesterday, his diversionary tactic, again on the after show, subscribe to Nathan Oakley channel, was to highlight failures or perceived failures in the flat earth assertions. And the Black Swan argument is based in the parameters of globe geometry. So it starts with, if the earth is a sphere with the radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon measurement must be no more than 1.225 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That's just standard globe geometry. There's nothing special about that statement. It's the tenets of your religion, if you're to call it a straw man. But the way that Tim gets around that is say, what about flat earth geometry? You know what that is? A big fat countermeasure, because the argument is focused on the sphere and the globe and the geometry thereof. So focusing on some different argument or perceived argument or some of his observations, another countermeasure he fired off. If you start arguing, Arwin Ajaria, when he said star rotation, and you went, star rotation, it's like, that's just a countermeasure. He wants you to chase. So well put, and I like the visuals. Shout out to Betty.
Yeah, like I was saying, you go right for the kill shot. What you don't get into explaining the 5 effects of refraction. I just like to expose them, but you don't. As soon as they say refracted horizon, they're done. And you're right for doing it. I'm giving you kudos. You're right. I just like to explain it and rub their noses in it. Let everyone know that they don't even know what atmospheric refraction is.
You have a tangent.
Maybe explain that, Flatsoid. How the physical geometry actually works when you're drawing a tangent line, compared to their donkey dick that they've now got bent around something. Or don't.
Sorry, it's freezing here.
And it's very cream here.
Did you hear what I just said about the effects of refraction?
Yes, you like to take them through and rub their nose in the fact that there are 5 effects of refraction that they don't actually know. So yesterday, JLB said something to the effect of, wouldn't the negligible refraction nullify a lot of their arguments? Very interested. And you said, well, how interested are you? What are the 5 effects? And he went, why are you so angry? Or something like that.
Yeah, right. Right. Exactly. Just like, yeah, that's what they do when they get caught. Right? It's not only ballers, but I don't know what is he anyway?
What, in terms of his affiliation to the shape of the earth, if you want to phrase it that way?
Yes, I'm sorry.
He doesn't declare. I think geocentrist would probably be what I would describe him as. Sphere earther.
Fair enough.
That's the closest I can come to. But that said, the reification fallacy has been detailed quite specifically by John Le Bon. The map is not the terrain. We don't live on a model. He gets all of that. So he's made that quite explicit. So if you were to try and actually tie him to a model, He's got a whole joke about it, which I've never looked into because I'm not actually paying to his website. But nonetheless, he's got the Le Bon model, and I know he doesn't believe in reification. He understands the fallacy. So I don't know what the joke is there. Go on.
You have to pay for that.
Well, I just see it as a joke.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, you have to pay for it, but I just see that as a joke. If you're chasing models, you're prepared to give him money, and you want to see what the Le Bon model is, then I just see that as he's probably taking the piss out of people. But I'm not going to actually pay to find out what Le Bon. I couldn't give a crap. But I'll joke about it, and when he's asking us how something should work in a model, my first question, well, how does it work in your model? Well, you got to pay for that, was his response.
Yep, got to pay for that. Why? Because you got to pay the salary of his fleet of slobber nurses.
Right, he's probably just got to eat like me. Smash the super chat, people.
Well, Nathan, you said it the other day. X marks the spot on their Muppet Vision. Remember?
Yeah, if you go to Mick West's calculator, scroll down to the little diagram in Muppet Vision. Muppet Vision being you seeing the side of your own head on the left-hand side of his model. He's got a little eyeball or whatever. That's you, the side of your own head being seen. Not that we view the world in that way. Muppet Vision. But yeah, you've got a little X on the geometric edge of the physical sphere, they're claiming, with that model. And what does it say next to that X, 10th man?
Geometric horizon.
Yeah, it says horizon.
What's funny is that whether it's Mick West model or Andrew Thomas Young's drawings, they've got the sphere in such a shape in that drawing that it doesn't match reality anyway. Because if you're standing at the seashore and you're looking straight out, it doesn't match what this side angle view Muppet Vision shows whatsoever. This is where I think Flatchoid was going to bring in his tangent line, but he got too cold or something. And then they got the refracted horizon being loomed up, which they can't use anymore, from way further down. So none of this matches anything. The whole thing is charade.
Yeah, you can't use geometric-based refraction values with its R glaring and sticking out like a sore thumb at the moment if you don't have a geometric horizon. The whole thing collapses at this point.
It's just a clever way of subliminally tricking people. But if you show that picture, the ones we're talking about with the Muppet Vision drawings, normie, average Joe, Jane, you're going to say, that's not the way the world presents itself to me. I don't see anything falling away.
Right, and your plane's certainly not descending. Just going to do a quick shout out to Vinny P. Here comes some money for food. God bless you, Nathan and panel. God bless you, Vinny. Keeping meat in my stomach. Thank you very much indeed. No, I really do appreciate your support. Thank you very much indeed. Speaking of support, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of the people who are channel members as Lions. So a massive shout out to FE Diplomat, Anaconda Malt Liquor 17, Daz Studio 68, who's also one of my Patreons, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, also one of my Patreons, Rhett Priestley, is it Contrapolitan? I've got to get a bigger text on my screen. Windrider, another Patreon. All people, free people, another one of my Patreons, and Eagle Plane and Anchor, who I believe is also one of my Patreons. So massive shout out to all the people who are channel members as Lions. Really do appreciate your support.
Oh, QE Live today. Early church councils with Paula, Bible literalist, man. It's gonna be really good. This is one of those things that Bible haters always brought up, and people that don't know what they're talking about have brought up. It says, "Oh, they changed the Bible." So it's gonna be a good show, man. I need to brush up on it too. So QE Live today on the Quantum Eraser channel, 1 p.m. U.S. Central, 7 p.m. UK. Be here, B-Sphere. Thanks.
Shout out to Good Servant for hitting the super chat. So, just as a mild update as well to anybody who might have been interested, JLB asked yesterday for some documentation regarding negligible refraction, and I said, I'll get it from Sleeping Warrior. I don't keep documentation for anything. nevertheless, he got back in touch and said, I'm actually not at home at the moment, so I haven't got my hands on it. I've got about 5 papers, he said. So I'll get those to JLB when I get them from Sleeping Warrior. I've seen them cited. I never have asked to actually be given any of these things. I'll read them when they're on screen or sent to me, but I don't keep them. I'll just read them and then disregard the tab. That's terrible, really, isn't it? I'm so lazy. I never cite anything. That said, just for anybody who might be critical in the comments, you don't need to. The citation isn't your argument. Your argument's your argument. Citations just back your argument. But I'd prefer to not actually require any citations. Just have the argument tucked up nice and tight. Half the time I can't even put my finger on the Black Swan photo. I'm like, has anyone got it? Yeah, it's in Master B. So I should really have it, right? I don't. It's terrible.
Isn't it interesting how quiet it is since the Black Swan and their followers' first attempt to attack it, and Black Swan kicked them down the road like a tin can. And now, look how nice the show's been. No ballers, no wild accusations. They don't know how to get out of checkmate.
Yeah, they're the Walking Dead, man. Most of them just don't know it yet.
Glad you got a proper live show plug-in. You typically wait till the after show and like, I can't plug my show. I'm like, well, this goes out directly after your live show. But you've got a proper plug-in, so check out Quantum Erase channel. As I was going to say, there's a whole nice little network now, off the back of everybody who's a ballbuster, me included, where you can. I tend to put on the end of the outros for the recent videos I've done like a ballbusters outro, so everyone gets a little plug. So the Adam Meakin, Sleeping Warrior, 10th Man, not that you're a videographer, Chocolate saying same thing applies, but you know, Ranty, Dr. John D, yourself, Paula I've mentioned already, but you're doing a show with her tonight on Quantum Eraser at 7 PM UK time, 1 PM Central Standard. Be here or be sphere, Quantum Eraser channel. But that's another excellent show. I watch it. And Arwin, same thing applies. So I'm leaving you till last so you can actually go on from here, Arwin. But Arwin has a daily show on his channel, ARWIJN, called The Flat Earth Early Bird. And he's saying daily for, it's got to be coming up for a couple of years now, right, Arwin? Well, yes, I have had the show for a long time. It is my favorite thing to do in the morning. I like to talk.
I'm thinking. I'm thinking of starting a channel with some videos now. It's going to be a departure, though. It's going to be cooking videos.
Cooking,
yeah.
ball-tarred gooses.
Yeah. You're going to ruin the pun. It's coming. Wait for it.
No, I'm serious. I love to cook, but like a recipe, showing people how to make meals instead of going out and spending a ton of money on stupid stuff. I've always cooked, barbecued mostly outside is the best. And heck, the globe died with Black Swan. All the thrill is gone. I got to do something that's more, that's real passionate with me, and that's food.
Don't really understand what the super chat means. I'll read it anyway. Eric La says, doesn't the distance from the observation have to be recalculated when you zoom in, though? Now, I think I'm going to choose to paraphrase it the way I want to answer it because I don't fully understand what you're asking. But the angular size, this is where I had Zanuck on my very shouty, sweary after party show. So check it out. Again, on the second channel. Subscribe today, Nathan Oakley. Get me up to 5,000. is the angular size, otherwise known as apparent size, is not accounted for in the geometric physicality that is the Earth curve calculation. It's dealing in actual sizes. So, for example, a 100-foot lighthouse, if you're stood next to it, like literally at the bottom of it, to see the top of the lighthouse, you've got to literally lift your head up, tilt your head towards the sky to see the top of the lighthouse. And how tall is that lighthouse that you're craning your neck to look at the top of? Well, it's a 100-foot lighthouse. Now you look at the same lighthouse from 30 miles away. Well, it's 3 pixels. It's teeny, tiny, and you're definitely not having to crane your neck to look at it. You're having to look at it through optical equipment with greater zoom length to even see it. So the angular size, otherwise known as apparent size, has massively reduced, while the actual size remains the same. How big is that? 3 pixels? Well, in actual size, it's still 100 feet. Now, if you take it from 30 miles to 30,000 miles, in the Earth curve calculator, it's not disappeared from view because it's too small to see in angular apparent size. It's still 100 feet. So, in their maths, nothing ever disappears because it's too small. They only deal in physical actual sizes. So currently, the whole circuit of globe heads is telling us all about these apparent, redundant term, all horizons are apparent horizons. Well, does their maths deal in apparent? No, it deals in geometry, the physicality they're claiming of a sphere Earth. So this argument is their linchpin. It's checkmate. You can't start referring to our arguments about how not actual things in the distance are, because this boat isn't the same size as the sun. Obviously, it's just very small in the distance far away zoomed in, as opposed to if you stood next to it on the dock. But the feet and inches value, utilised in the Earth curve calculations, never changes. Very useful if you're going to use the effect of angular size reduction at distance and call it Earth curve, which is precisely what they've done. Hijacked perspective. So, do you need to recalculate the zoom? You need to account for the apparent nature of everything. And they're currently claiming the apparent nature is something that they absolutely do always and have always dealt with, when they're actually using geometric maths. Of the physical sphere, they claim blocks things, and the physical edge they claim bends as you raise in altitude till it forms a circle that they'll call the blue marble. So their maths deals in physical and actual. The reality of the nature with what we get on pictures is things get smaller, angular size. That's what we call apparent sizes. Well, yeah, they don't deal with that. So I hope that answers your question, Eric Lara. If it's something totally different, you'll have to let me know, but that's what I read into your question. Thanks for the super chat. This silence is where Arwen would be talking if he hadn't buggered off for a smoke or whatever he's done.
Hey, there's a new song on the airwaves.
Stay tuned.
Oh, please.
Technical difficulties. Where's the mute buttons?
Please, no.
No, I'm not singing it.
Not the mushroom one.
Not
No,
you
it's in
rap
Master
with me
B.
swearing.
No.
No, it's in Master B. No.
Original battle. Can I play it? Will it get me a copyright strike?
No.
You sure?
Yeah.
That didn't sound sure.
In 2020, we took a little trip with Quantum Eraser in the Flat Earth Discord ship. We looked at the horizon and we made a measurement, and we caught the bloody globers in the Black Swan argument. We fired our guns and the globers kept it coming. There wasn't as many as it was a while ago. We fired once more and the globers took to running back to Gem Panda server to crawl into a hole. Now Quantum Eraser, he lacked confidence, but he put on a snazzy show for the audience. The Baltards flee when QB they do see the General Patton Swan roll suits him to a T. We fired our guns and the globers kept it coming. There wasn't as many as it was a while ago. We fired once more and the globers took to running back to Gem Panda server to crawl into a hole. Yeah, they ran through the briars and they ran through the brambles and they ran through the bushes where a rabbit couldn't go. They ran so fast that the hounds couldn't catch them back to Gem Panda server to crawl into a hole. We fired our guns and the Glovers kept it coming. It wasn't as many as it was a while ago. We fired once more and the Glovers took the running back to Jim, paid a server to crawl into a hole. Hey, Baltard, it's not about the oil rig shape. Say refraction one more time, Huey's mouth will go agape. Quantum eraser has smashed the go-to bits. If you want to see a curve, ask a girl to show her tits. Fired our guns and the Glovers kept it coming. There wasn't as many as it was a while ago. Fired once more and the Glovers took the running back to Gem Panda server to crawl into a hole. He's not angry, he's just a bit rat-trad. Alpha males drive the Baltards mad. Get off the globe and you'll get back your mind. You can count on Huey for a kick in your behind. We fired our guns and the Glovers kept it coming. It wasn't as many as it was a while ago. Fired once more and the Glovers took the running back to Gem Panda server to crawl into a hole. Sound off! Black Swan! Dismissed.
Woohoo! That was ace. Just going to read out a super chat from Retro Bill. It says, smash the super chat, share the show, and tune in to Quantum Eraser show later today. That's 1 p.m. Central Standard, 7 p.m. UK, with special guest Paula, Bible literalist. Be here or be sphere, open brackets. This has been an unsolicited announcement, close brackets. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat and unsolicited announcement on behalf of Quantum Eraser channel. Be here or be sphere, 7 p.m. UK, 1 p.m. Central Standard. Excellent song.
Well,
love it.
If the Black Swan doesn't convert them, this song will make them come to Flathers just so they don't hear it again.
Or at least dig out their old banjo.
On the Billboard 100.
Billboard Flat Earth 100. I don't think Flat Earth has got 100 songs yet. But that's definitely a contestant. If you send that off, if you can get somebody to put, or even just trim it out from this debate, although it's got me nodding my head along in the middle, which is a bit embarrassing. But if someone can actually trim it out as a song with a background video to go with it, Mark Sargent will publish it. He's got a full playlist with pure Flat Earth music, so he'll publish it and stick it in the playlist.
Somebody did a remix version. They called it EDM, electronic dance music.
Somebody's got to cut that out.
No.
They called it EDM, electronic dance music. Like you've never heard of this notion of. Someone's got to cut that out. EDM.
Yeah, I didn't know what to make of it. You know, I'm a boomer, right? I knew techno stuff, back in the day, but this one was a strange one, man. I'll put it in Master B if you want to listen to it, but it's strange.
Cut to the clip of a grizzled old prospector going, and they said it was something called rock and roll.
There it is, man.
EDM.
Right, I won't play all of this. I might play it all in the after show. I'll just play a few bits, a little bit.
2, 3, 4.
Sound off!
Black Swan. Doo-doo.
Okay, yeah, we'll have it in the after show.
Oh my gosh!
Very good.
You're killing me.
It's not like the original.
Well, somebody give me a class on.
Somebody give you
me a
what?
class on EDM. What the heck is that?
Dance music.
The
Dance
EDMC
music.
Sparrow Missile.
Yeah, dance music. What you just call dance music? Subcategorized about 1,000 bazillion times. EDM would be what you'd call it in the 80s, when it was just a few people with synthesizers and a repetitive 4/4 beat. But EDM, it is just like a grizzled old prospector going, yeah, they said something about rock and roll,
nonsense.
this crazy old thing that these kids are listening to.
That's a bunch of baloney, man. I was in
Baloney.
clubs in the 80s.
Hey,
That's a load of
Huey,
old
do you know-
codswallop.
Huey, do you know who Giorgio Moroder is?
Wait a second. I was in Berlin in the 80s doing all the clubs, right? I never heard no nonsense like that. Now, we heard some techno stuff back then, but nothing like that.
Techno is EDM. Just a
Is it?
subcategory. Yeah. Can't believe we're having this conversation. I feel like I'm talking to my dad.
I better shut up.
This is awful. What a way to round out the show.
It's too late, man. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave
It's
it on.
over.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to leave the live show on this cringe horrible note. So with that, I'll say if you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow with some EDM. If you're watching this live, however, this is where we bid you farewell. A massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to today's... Excuse me, I'm still chuckling from that. Massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making this live show possible. As I say, stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Call it an EDM outro.